Okay, let's start. Okay, so good morning. I know it's a good evening in India, and of course a late night for people joining from the other Asian countries. And welcome to this virtual session on the connector SDK. We have the the connector SDK team here joining us from Workato. Right. So
Right.
we have Nitesh Saxena who leads the team over here, and we have his team Derek. We have Mahesh, Aaron, and other members who will be helping us out for the entire session, right? So before that, I'll just give you a quick introduction to people. Who am I and what do I do at Workato? I lead the global community and education partnership program here, and the session that we're attending today is a part of the community program that we run. I'll quickly explain about education program. That's not the agenda for the day, but let me give you a quick introduction in 30, 40 seconds, and then we'll move ahead. So under education program, what we plan to do is we tie up with good universities across the globe, colleges and universities, and we introduce Workato into the curriculum. So we have, as of now, across the globe, we have around 15 plus universities and colleges where Workato has, tight partnership with them, and we introduce Workato into their curriculum. So it's a technical school, it's a business school, it's an HR school. Depending upon the requirement of the institution, we go ahead and teach Workato to the students, so that once they are graduated, they have Workato skill set in their resume, and they can look forward for jobs in the coming market. Now, let me introduce you to the speaker for the today's session. We have Derek. Hey, hi, Derek. So Derek works under Nitesh Saxena, which is the SDK connector team. He is the senior integration developer, and he will be the instructor for the day. Along with Derek, we have Mahesh and we have Aaron, who will be the moderator for the session. So they'll help out. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it into the chat, or at the end of the session, we'll also have a Q&A session. So they would help you to go ahead and have any questions, they'll address that, right? So that's all from my side. I will hand it over to Derek, and he will go ahead and start the session. Before that, Nitish, do you have anything to address before we start the session?
Yeah, just want to add one thing that welcome to this session, and we hope that you gain uh, very good knowledge from these kind of sessions. So moving forward, our agenda is to make people learn about Workato SDK and build more and more connectors and submit it to the community for the benefit of all of our mutual customers and partners. So thank you all for joining, and let's start the session. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. Derek, over to you. You're the man of the hour, man.
Thank you so much, Nayaz and Nitesh. Good morning to everyone, afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. So today, we'll be discussing about the Connector SDK platform and how you can get started on utilizing it in Workato. So let's dive into it. First, I will share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see it now. All right, so skipping this. Now, here are the topics that we'll be discussing. First, I'll give a brief introduction about what are connectors in Workato. Then we'll proceed on exploring each components that made up a connector. After that, we'll go through on how you can establish connections to your applications and a sneak peek about building actions in your connector. And lastly, I will provide quick demos for each topic, and we will wrap it up with a summary in the end. So let's go with the first agenda. What are connectors in Workato? So just a quick background. Today, we have around 1,000 or 1,500 connectors that are built in the community. So when we think about Workato and the connector SDK, we need to talk about a holistic picture with the whole Workato ecosystem. So concerning the breadth of connectivity, this is where SDK comes into picture. It provides you the way to extend Workato platform to build new connectors, which are not available out of the box. This really complements the recipe building experience. So native connector as well as custom connector working together to achieve the automation use cases. So Workato connectors secure access to your business applications. Each connector includes authentication methods, triggers, and actions for its specific target app. So we have two types of connectors. One is the platform connectors, which are pre-built by the product engineering. And the ones that we use with SDK is that the community connectors, which can be found in the community library built by customer success team, customers, and partners. Now, let us discuss the SDK framework. Basically, it is a Workato platform feature that allows its users to build their own custom connector. And these custom connectors are built using the Workato software development kit. The SDK framework is fully cloud native and has no dependencies. You can open it from any browser just like you open your workspace and build the recipes. It is available in all the workspaces and there is no additional add-on required for this. In the Workato page, you can navigate to the SDK console by going from Tool to SDK Connector, as you can see on the screen. Once you open it, you will be directed to the SDK console, which has a template code already written for reference to jumpstart the process. Now, moving on to the next slide, this is where you're redirected. This is the SDK page wherein you can select the connector you want to edit, you want to develop. So it is available in all workspaces and here are some example use cases on why and when you need SDK connectors. So first, there are no pre-built connectors that are available for your applications. So imagine a use case wherein the customer is looking for a connector that is not built by the product and engineering team. So that's where SDK shines. Second one is when you want to extend custom triggers. So that means adding triggers, may it be a polling or a webhook one. So another thing is to extend connector with custom actions. Imagine an API update that contains a new endpoint. So that means if you want to add that new endpoint, you can just build it as a new action by extending your SDK code. Fourth one is to extend it with custom fields and data fields. So with this feature, in case the API has updated, supporting custom fields and any additional schemas, you can also build them as schema or build a new method in the SDK code to support this additional fields. Lastly, you can extend the connector with custom authentication type. So all of these items are related to most of the API updates that are happening around applications in the web. And that it depends on your use case, whether it's for authentication, it's for adding new endpoint, adding support for custom fields, everything is applicable. Now, here are the things that you can build with SDK. The first is to build actions. Actions like, as I have said, adding new actions for new endpoints available from the API, extending their features for custom fields or schemas. Second one is for building triggers in case the endpoint is a very good candidate for a trigger like a list endpoint, something like that. And then next would be for advanced authentication. So if you have an HTTP connector that just allows you to mostly build basic authentication-based authorizations, you can use the SDK connector, leverage it to build complicated authentication like OAuth 1, on-prem based connections, and so on. The fourth one would be for, on-prem for databases, Internet of Things, and legacy applications that, for example, allows you to you need to integrate those flat files like CSV, XML, and JSON. It is all through the on-prem connection. And lastly, you can use the SDK platform to use the advanced features like dynamic building of schemas, pick lists, and functions that we mostly use for building generic actions throughout our community connectors nowadays. Moving on to the next slide, we will be having the debugger console. So we will discuss different features used for debugging, which is first to fix errors in code, like for syntax error, incorrect number of arguments. The debugger is very useful as the platform will always tag you for an error in case of any problem that you encounter during development. You can also test the connection by calling your test endpoint in the code. So that means by testing it, you can also test if the API server is responding well. And lastly, to test actions and triggers, which is a kind of a feature from the console that allows you to be in a dummy recipe editor to execute your actions and triggers without actually having an actual recipe. Oh, I almost forgot, we also have this version control and connector sharing. So that means we have the ability to save and control different versions of the connector, as well as the ability to share connectors to others, whether privately or in the Workato community. So in code debugging, you can see here that when you click on any action or trigger, the framework will take you to the dummy recipe, as I have said, where you can provide all input parameters to test your action or your trigger. It's just and simple, right? Plain and simple. Now, I will show you a demo on how the debugger console looks like, the feel of it, and how we can use the code debugging in this matter. So going on to the actual Workato page, we will be navigating to the SDK page, and I will try to select an existing connection. Actually, yep. I can already create a new SDK connector for you. And then, yep, I have a pre-ready SDK code just for the sake of demonstration. Okay. So we will be testing creating a connection. So in this case, in this screen, you will see on the left side the text editor for the SDK code. And for the right side is where you see the code debugger. You can also see the connection fields and how you will create a connection and the list of actions available for this connector. So let us try to establish a simple connection for Jira connector. Okay, I forgot about it. So as you have seen a while ago, it is reporting about the name of the connection that it needs to be unique. So any error that appears is being displayed by the debugger console. So you need to fix that. So for the name to be unique, let us fix that. Okay, I forgot the token. All right. So Whenever the connection is successful, you will see this connection success sign, meaning it was able to make a connection by contacting the API, and we got a successful response from the test block. We can also demonstrate here in the debugger the actions listed in the connector. Okay. So as you can see on the error, it is unauthorized. So I'll fix something in the code to make it compatible with the connection. We will discuss this later. And that's how it works. So the debugger console shows you the error message if there's a problem with the action. And this is where you could also see the input, output, and debug tab, which is kind of familiar as you check the actions in the job report in the recipe. Okay. Moving on to the connector release and versions page. This is where you can manage the version of the connector. So the one below the connector name, as you can see on the screen, is the latest version that you are working upon. And the other one is the release version that the recipes are using. This is very important because you don't want to release the in-progress code that may break the recipe. So therefore, the version that you are working in the recipe in the console will always be the latest version, but it is your choice which version you want to release for the recipes. So in short, the latest version of the code is where you debug the code, and the release version is the one on which the recipes are running. Once the connector is built, you can use it in the recipe and publish it into the community and share it with others privately in case you need to release the connector. So to release the connector, you can just press the release latest version, confirm it from the top right corner, and once done, it will release the latest version and it will take effect to any of the recipes that are using your connector. So as I mentioned earlier, here is the version tab for the connector console. So it provides the inbuilt version control feature, which is highlighted as the versions tab, wherein whether you save the code or run the debug, the framework will automatically save the changes and increase the version. So over here, you can find the chronological view of the different versions that your connector has. You will be able to see some metadata about who made changes and which version is released and by whom, as well as the comments to inform what you have achieved in terms of milestones or logic that you can pick up from where you left off. So in the column, you can see when the specific version is updated on, who updated it, when it was released on, released by, and by the comments, which is very useful for you to continue where you left off in case you want to roll back. So to roll back to any specific version, just select any of the version number from the list and then click the release button to go back to that release version. And that version will immediately take effect to all of your recipes. So there are two ways to share your connector using the share tab. So it is to list it privately, or the first is to list the connector from the community by clicking the list connector. What happens when you click this button is a form that will appear to ask you fill few details about your listing, like what your connector is all about, what apps it's connected to, or in case you are building the connectors privately for internal use case, then you can share with your team using sharing privately using a link option. So this one will generate a sharing token. As you can see on the URL, it has the token parameter, which is a very unique one for each of connector by sharing it. The framework also provides you to share the version that you would like to share with others, and then continue working on the source code to enhance it further. Moving on to the community library. Our platform has this community library page wherein you have tons of custom connector listed over here for people to view and use and even extend the functionality. Everyone has the ability to install it in your workspace. So just a quick summary of what we have discussed. We have discussed what are SDK connectors and why and when you need to build them. Second is the debugger console, which can be used to test your connector, control different versions of your code, and how can you release and share your connectors, whether it's private or public. Moving on to the next topic, this will be the different components of a connector. To start with, first, you should give a proper name to your connector. The name given at the top is useful for searching the connector from the SDK screen or in the library. While the title that you can see, the title key that you can see in the code is the one used for identifying the connector at the recipe level. Next is to change the icon of your connector to the relevant app icon. So if you want to change this, just click the icon itself and click the upload button. And the Workato page will prompt you the file explorer, wherein you can browse for the icon that you want to use for this connector. Now we will be moving on to the skeleton of the connector. So here's where you write your source code. As I have said, this is the editor. We have 7 blocks in the screenshot. So it's a title, connection, test, object definitions, custom action, triggers, pick list, and methods. So to discuss each of them, connection is where you implement the code to authenticate the requests and make the connection. So it supports all of type of authentication, may it be oath, basic oath, or any custom authentication like on-prem, API key, or anything that allows you to send any custom parameters in the header section. The test block is where you can do a quick test to the connection. So for this block, we mostly use the most simple endpoint in creating the connection. So it is also used by Workato for checking if the connections are working before starting the recipe itself. So most of the endpoints that we use here is just a simple get method, just for the sake of testing the connection to the API server if it is responding well. So we don't need any kind of endpoint that has large results. We just need to confirm that the connection is working. Moving on to the object definition. Here is where you define commonly used input or output fields schema to reference them later in your actions or triggers. Object definition is very helpful to keep your code clean and reusable to your actions or triggers, making it much easier to maintain, which is very similar to methods, and which we'll be discussing at the last item. So the actions key, this is where you define the actions that are required to be performed by the connector and which are going to be used inside the recipe along with the triggers. So user input fields, which are required during design time can be configured here. Next is triggers. So triggers starts with the recipe and looks for an event. It creates the job if an event is caught. It can be implemented whether as a poll, which checks every few minutes like the scheduler, or as webhooks, whether it's dynamic or static. So webhooks are being used to make real-time triggers, which are kind of triggers that triggers jobs in real-time manner, which means it immediately create jobs in the recipe. You can define the input parameters as well, which are required to be provided by the user during the design time of triggers. Second to the last is the pick list, where you can define lists of values so that you can reference it whenever you are defining any input drop-down fields. So if you are familiar with one of our custom connectors in the library, like Azure AD or Jira, we have this object pick list in most of the actions. It's because we are dynamically building the schemas based on the object pick list. This object pick list contains the objects that are currently supported by the connector. Lastly, the methods, which are the really most free form way of defining anything which can be called from anywhere in the connector. It is very useful to keep your code clean, whether you're trying to do data processing, pre or post processing. It is a good practice to write it for as a reusable code block and call the method instead of rewriting the same code again. So methods help you to not repeat your code again and again in your SDK code. Now, let's do a quick demo on how you can build your first connector and show you the different components in the SDK console. So since I have done this earlier, I have pasted my template for this demo. Now, what we need to do is to change the connector name. The one that I'm changing right now is the one will be used for searching the connector itself. So if you search for it, this one will appear regardless of the title here. And this title will appear in your recipe. So to change the icon of this connector, just click upload over into the icon, click upload, and then select the PNG file or anything that matches your application. Simple as that. All right. So here's a quick summary of this topic. So here we have learned about how you can build your first connector in the console using the template provided by Workato. And then we have learned as well on how the connector name works and even changing the icon of this connector. And lastly, we have learned about the usual skeleton of the connector and how it works. So far, do you have any questions? If you have any questions, you can also drop it out to the chat. The next topic will be the connections. First, we want to talk about what is authentication and why do we need to implement it and what is its purpose. Authentication is a method by which applications verify your identity before providing you with information. It is similar to how we use usernames and passwords to protect our social media accounts by verifying who we are. So the first step in connecting to an API is authenticating your connector. So that means giving the API some way to know that it can trust you and send you potentially sensitive information. To capture the credentials, it can be captured by defining the input fields in the connection. Depending on the authentication type, This can be a combination of username and password, a client ID and a secret, certificates, or an API key. The next slide, you can see an actual schema of the possible properties you can use in the field. So this hashes contains different field attributes for specific purposes and can be used in both input and output fields. So it is needed for the development of user-friendly and self-explanatory connectors for the sake of giving hints on how it should be used in the connection, in the action, or trigger. Now let's move on to the field attributes, wherein these are the most useful properties that we are implementing in our connectors. Like, yeah, obviously we have the field name, which is the actual field that we send into the API. The label to control how you want to show the field in the UI. Hint, which allows you to add some useful hints before in order to guide the user. The type, which is the data type for the field like string, date, integer, and so on. And lastly, the optional property, which controls for you to mark the field whether it's required or not. Moving on to the authentication types, we will have different types of it, like the basic, O2, API key, JWT, and custom authentication. So we have also covered detailed documentation about this, but in this session, we will be focusing on the basic oath for Jira API. So the basic oath most commonly requires username and password as a combination, and it should be defined as a part of the connection fields. Then the password can either be an actual word or the API token that you are using to log into the application. Aside from the basic authentication, you can also learn more about different types of authentications. And you can visit this documentation for the list of authentication that you are interested about. You can also see some examples in the document. So now we want to test the connection after implementing the authentication. So this is how we can test the connection. To check if the connection is valid, we provide a test endpoint with the least amount of scopes required. So just like what I've said before, we just need a least endpoint with the minimal scopes required, describing the details about the authentication user. So when the successful response code is received, like HTTP 200, it will be marked as a successful. Hence, you will see the connection success in the screenshot. But if there's an error in the permissions, then that means there's an error will be displayed in the debugger console. Now, let's do a quick demo on how we can define the connection input fields, and we will also try to establish our connector to our application. So going back to the code, so I have commented out the OO2 authentication, which we will be trying out later on. For now, we will be focusing on the basic authentication. So we have the username and password, as we have discussed before. So for basic, we have username and password. We will be defining these fields. So we have the name, label, optional, and hint properties to properly define it, whether it's required and how it is being used in the connection. So let's look at the Jira API documentation and how we came up with this schema. So as per the Jira API documentation, The basic auth requires tokens. You can generate an API token for your Atlassian account and use it to authenticate anywhere where you have used a password. They have also an article on how you can create your API token if you don't have one yet. So that means we can use the token as a password in this basic authentication. So let's proceed on defining the input fields to capture the credentials. We will also put labels and hints to improve the user experience. So for each field, I have defined a hint on how they can be acquired. So this one opens a new tab on how you can generate your token. So in the connection hash, we have this field property, which is an array of fields. And then going on to the authorization hash, we have the type property, and value should be basic auth. For the apply block, we will be using the user and password to apply it in the header. So after saving, this is how it should look like in the UI. So I have saved it already. So the save button is already grayed out. Right. So in testing the connection, we will be using the endpoint that retrieves your settings in Jira or the properties of your user object. So it doesn't need to be very complicated endpoint. Just use the one for yourself. So let us try to disconnect first. Let's try to create a connection with invalid token. Let's see what the error looks like. Now let's try to create by using the correct token. So as you can see, the connection is successful. It called the endpoint, which is specified in the test block, which is the myself endpoint. All right. So that's how you can create a connection using the fields specified in the code. Just a quick summary of this topic. We have learned how to define fields in Workato and what are the commonly used attributes or properties. We've also discussed how can we use these fields to capture the credentials from the user, and also implemented authentication via basic auth for Jira and tested the credentials for both successful and unsuccessful scenarios. So again, if you have any questions, just feel free to leave it in the chat. And one of our moderators will help you with an answer. Thank you. So moving on to the actions. This will be the last topic of the day, and I would like to give you a quick introduction to actions in your connector. What is an action in a connector? Actions give your connectors functionality and purpose. These are executed when an event that triggers your recipe happens. So this is where you can utilize data received and from previous steps in a recipe, send requests to API endpoints, and provide the response data in the form of data pills. So here's a structure of an action of an action, and why should we have pick lists in the action? So pick lists are used in inputs to provide user the values to select instead of manually entering it in the inputs. So on the right side top, you can see the basic structure of pick list using the pick list key. So in the action name should be unique using the key name in the hash. The first property of your action is title. It gives you the ability to choose your own title for the action that you want to show in the recipe level. This is useful especially when you want to label your actions in a way that the user will easily understand. So the one with the cyan rectangles is the action title, and the subtitle will be the one on below it. It allows you to define the subtitle, which allows you to give a more descriptive side of the action together with the description. It allows you to define the description of your action when it is viewed in the recipe editor. So the the view that you're seeing before is from the actions list, while the description is what you see in the actual recipe workflow. So it also supports HTML tags so that you can highlight which object and application is being used in this action. So in that case, the account is the object name highlighted and the app is Salesforce. Moving on to the help block. So this key allows you to provide a more information to the user on how you should utilize this action. So compared to the subtitle, it explains what the action does, while the help block will allow you on how you can use the action. And it also allows you to link a documentation to learn more about the usage of the action. For the descriptive tags, we also have batch, bulk, and deprecated, which are used to represent an action, whether it can be used with an array of records. For a bulk tag, it tells the user that this action works with records from a large file like CSVs. And the deprecated property is a tag that will hide the legacy actions from the recipe editor, but it will still continue to work if you already have it in your existing and old recipes. So just a quick demo on how we will implement action in the connector. We will still be using the existing code that I have. So let us start um, with the lease records action. So we will be providing the properties like title, subtitle, and description. So as I have discussed before, I have made some descriptive text for this action and how it works and how you should use the input fields using the help block. So in this example, we will be providing a dynamic description based on the selected object in the action. So we will be also using the HTML tags to span to highlight the keywords. So as you can see in the description, we have used the span tag to highlight the object name selected in the pick list. We also use that to highlight the application name, which is Jira Custom. So let's see how it looks like in the action itself. So whenever you initialize the action, the word itself will be records, highlighted in blue. But if you select any of these objects like project, it should be highlighted. So in the next topic, we will be talking about how we can add these input fields you can see in the action. So we have in this action, we have the input fields, which is using the object definitions connected to the config fields. So in the description a while ago, the displayed object name is defined according to the selected value from the object pick list. In the input pick list, let's see how it looks like. So we don't have any dynamic implementation in this object definition. But as you can see, we have used the common properties that we use for fields like the name, label, hint, and type. Now, let us discuss the execute block. So execute is basically where you define what the action needs to do. From here, you can perform pre-processing of input data, send requests to API endpoints, processing of the response, and handling errors. And here are the list, a table of request methods that we can support in SDK. So you should be already familiar with most of them, like the get, post, put, as we have used them in actions, triggers, object definitions, and other components of the connector. We will be covering how we can do post-response processing of HTTP calls to manipulate data into formats that are easier to use later in your connector code. So let's continue building the list action on how you can define the execute block. So a while ago, I have demonstrated the list records, but we will be proceeding with the create record. So going back to the code, we can now add the execute key. This has 5 possible arguments: the connection, input data, input and continue argument that we'll be using for asynchronous actions. But in this example, we will be focusing on the first and second argument only. So we will prefix the other arguments with an underscore to indicate that they are not going to be used. So next up, either the project template key or project type key is required when creating projects in Jira. So we will be putting a condition to raise an error message if both fields are left blank by the user. So let's try to implement that. So to create a project, as mentioned, project template key is required. So in this case, it is not tagged as a required without having the red asterisk. So if this field is not populated, an error will be called here, which is called in line 515 using the error method. So to implement that, we will be checking using an if block if the object is project, and then whether if the project template key or the project type key is blank, the error will occur. So what if we do not leave it blank? So let's try something like test. So we're testing with invalid values. But for the sake of the demo, I will be using the OAuth connection in order for this action to work. So I'll be creating a new one, and I'll be commenting out the basic oath in the connection. Okay. Using those expanding those fields, you should be careful in case you can see the error. Just make sure that the hashes are properly connected using the commas. So right now, let us try to create an OO2 base connection. Right? So I will input my pre-ready credentials. And select all the scopes. Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen only with the browser. So I will try to show you the entirety. So you could see the pop-up when I click the connect button. So with the connect button, if the connection is OO2 based, it will be prompting you for the authorization request. You can see what you need to do, accept it. Okay, so that's because I intentionally left the secret blank. Now let's try it again. And now the connection should be successful. So now I will be creating a record. So I will test this action with the successful one. Now I have a pre-made payload that I created. So if you can see on the console, we have the recipe view and the row JSON. So if you have the if you are debugging from the recipe level, you can also copy the JSON from the action input tab and paste it here, and then move on to the recipe view. And you can see that it is already input. So for the sake of the duplication, I will create another project key to make it work. That's it. All right. So we're now able to create a project. So going back on how we created the execute block, we have made an if block to check if the project template key is present or not, or either the project type key. And on the next line, 517, we are splitting the host name from the connection to select the cloud ID from the response. So this is how it works. So from the connection, we have this subdomain, Workato SDK dash demo. We want to split that. That's why we use the first, which is the first index when you split. And then you will be selecting the item from the array that has this exact name. So we are plucking the ID from it using the dig method. And also I forgot to use the select. So select is used for iterating through the array response. So if you want to select the selected one from the specified connection, then just use this and then make sure to add an argument that you want to clock the site. You want to use the actual record that matches the site name from the connection with the response. So now that we have the cloud ID, okay, let me demonstrate if and how you can see it. So I will use the puts, which is a method for logging the text in the console. So as you can notice here, we only have 3 tabs, but if we will use the put, the console tab will appear. Now let's try it again. I think a deduplication will appear. Okay, there's an error. So since we use the puts method, we have the console tab. And now it clocks the ID of the site that we have from the response. So in 518, we are trying to get the site ID using this endpoint, accessible dash resources. And then using the select method, we are making an argument to select the one that matches the site name from the connection. And then lastly, dig the first record in the index and get the ID value. Now we have stored it in the cloud ID variable and use it in the posts to make a correct URL in the post request below. So two requests are done in this action, which is to get the site name from the get endpoint. And then the last one is to create the record using the post endpoint. All right. So on the last part of the execute block, we have the post method, wherein we have the URL of the endpoint and then the object that we are selecting. So using the accept method, we are selecting the object value from the input hash, which is project. So we are removing the object key from the hash to avoid being sent into the payload. So let's talk about how we can add input and output fields to your action. Input fields are used to capture data from your users in the recipe editor. They can be used in the execute block and can be a config field or a regular input field. So moving on to the demo, we will be defining the config fields. Thank you. We will be defining the config fields as the pick list and the input fields as your recipe input fields. So going back to the code, let's start by adding the pick list field using the config field key. So let's imagine we don't have this code for now. So we have the config fields, which contains the object field. And we want to make it optional because we don't want our code to fail if there is no object. So adding fields to that object, it pertains to the object that we support in the connector, like the project, Jira user, or Jira issue. But for now, we only have a project for create record action. So we have also defined a pick list, which is a best practice for the config field to easily allow users select the object that they want to use in their workflow. Next is to add the input fields in the action. So let's comment it out. In input fields, it is best to use object definitions always if you want to dynamically call it. But for this one, we will be proceeding with the create object input object definition. So to search that, just use Control F or Command F in Mac, and then use the search box to navigate through it, and then press enter. It will jump to that line number. So as you can see here, the object definitions has 3 arguments: connection, config fields, and object definitions. For now, we will only be using config fields. So for the config fields to work, we have used the config fields to dynamically show the schema based on the selected object. So in that case, we have used the case switch, which contains the argument or the condition project. So if the object selected is project, then we will be displaying an array of fields related to the project. So if there is no object selected, then that means the input schema will be blank. It's because of the line 302. So the next means that it will be passing a blank array if there is no value for the config fields. So let's try it out. So if there's no item or value, you can always use the row JSON to verify. And then if you want to reset it, going back to the initial state, it will have no schemas related to the project. Okay. And based on the fields that we are working on, we have used the Jira documentation as our reference for the fields. So in creating your project, we always have to refer to the documentation like this. So we have the fields in the documentation like the assignee type, description, the issue type scheme key, and the project template key, and so on. And each of them has their data type property on the right side so that you can correctly define them in your schema, whether it's an integer, string, boolean, or a date field. How about the output fields? So these fields are represented as data fields in your recipe editor. So these data fields can be accessed by your subsequent actions in the recipe. It is similar to the input fields. We will also define this using the Workato schema format. So if you're not yet aware, the format of a Workato schema is always in array, and it is an array of keys. So simply, we don't want to overcomplicate the output fields. We only need to define the name of the field and its type if needed. So since the ID is integer format, we have used the type attribute to define it. So defining the output fields, we still have output fields as the key in the action. Going back to the create record, we search the name, and then going to the output fields, we also use the object definitions similar to input fields. But this time, the best practice is to always use another object definition, whether it's input or output. So it should be particular to the kind of schema you want to build. So let's jump through it. And the same property should be in the same format. It is always represented by an array of hashes. So this is how it should look like in the UI. So simple fields are displayed like this. So they have their own control types like ABC, 1, 2, 3, denoting that they are a string or an integer. Next is how we can define the sample output. So for the sample output fields, we need to match it with the output fields. So let us try to demonstrate how we can define the sample output. Going back to the code, we can add the output fields using the output fields key. But for now, we will be using the sample output block. In this case, we have used a method called a sample record. So for the sample output, we have two arguments called connection and input. So since we won't be using the connection hash, we make it as a reserve argument by using the underscore tag. So let's go and check the sample record. So we use the create sample record method to dynamically display the output sample output for each object selected in the action. And then it's the same thing for the config field. We are validating the selected object by checking the value of the object pick list using the case switch. So if you will notice, we don't use the if else block that much because for the case switch, we are expecting multiple objects to support in the connector, which makes it extensible for everyone. So when you use case switch initially in your code, you don't have to complicate extending your code by changing the if block into switch case. So to build the sample output, we just need to select the or specify the hash by matching it from the output. So going back to let's check some successful response from the create record. So we have the self, ID, and key properties from the response. So you can see that in JSON format, the sample output matches it as a hash. Then you can define a string to put it as the sample value in your sample output block. So this is how it looks like in the action. So the sample value is always indented, and then the key would be in the normal format of text. So if there is no project selected, again, going back to the initial state, there will be no output fields. So since we have validated that the selected object is project, the sample value will also appear for each field. Now, I think this is what we have. Yeah. So we're done with the actions. Now we're done with the session. I think. I just want to summarize what we have done for the action topic. So we have learned how to define the action title, give descriptive hints, subtitle, and help block to this action. We've also learned how to add input and output fields, even creating sample output to display sample values for each key in the output fields. And lastly, on how we can create an execute block and how we can execute the action. So that includes checking or validating the input if it is present or not, the project template key, before executing the creation of the project in the endpoint. So far, that's pretty much it for tonight or today. So I'm handing over the floor for the question and answer portion. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Derek, for this wonderful session. Right.
Thank
To
you.
all of you, just to let know that, Derek is joining us from Philippines. It's almost 11:30 p.m. for his time. So let's appreciate the effort that, he's taken out this time to, get started with the SDK session for the community. If you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the chat, or you also have rights to unmute yourself. You can also unmute yourself and ask question directly to the panelist over here. We're getting a lot of applause for you, Derek. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure to speak to everyone, all of you.
Right. Till the time we are getting some questions, just let me share a quick QR code with you. I believe most of you are part of a community already. If not, then please, save this snap with you, and later you can register into the community platform. If you have any questions on any topic related to Workato, for example, let it be SDK connector and question related to that, you can always go to our forum and post your questions there. Anybody, including Workato employees who knows the answers, they would happily go ahead and start answering those questions so that you get solutions over there, right? So just take a snap of it, and later on you can register into the platform if you haven't done so far, right? Okay. So we'll give it a minute or so. We have a quick feedback that we'll take before we close this session. Before that, if we have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat box. There were a few, a lot of questions while Derek, you were presenting. Mahesh and Aaron have already taken care to answer those questions so far. Okay, so I'll just launch the feedback session. I know it's a poll that would come in your Zoom window. Please feel free to answer those questions, because that is the feedback for us we can improve upon in the next session depending upon the feedback that you have given. There you go. So the feedback should be there in front of your screen. So Derek, what's the next session that we are planning for the members here? Do we have a continuity of this session that we can carry forward with them?
We continue this session with the bigger parts and few of the universal connectors, like how we will demo the universal connectors, how it should need to use and how it is helpful to the partners and customers, how easily we can create a connector within a second. So and later on we will also plan to have some sessions on advanced topic like OPA and
Cool, definitely. So in the feedback, we have already added a text box for you, any specific topic that you would like to, see forward in the future. Please make sure you mention those topics so that we can address those in the coming meetups that we have. Okay, so a couple of minutes more before we end this session.
Yeah, so before we end up, I think I would like to thank everyone for taking out your time and joining this session. So your feedback is very important to us, and we'll continue delivering topics on the SDK connectors. Okay. And yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Nitesh. We had a wonderful turnaround, Nitesh, for this session. And I
Yeah.
believe the topic is really interesting. And, so I hope we should definitely, do a continuation of, this series. Let's look what the feedback is from the participant and let's build upon that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So I request participants, please, submit the feedback. And once you've submitted the feedback, please feel free to drop off the call. If you have any questions, please stay back. We would happily address all the questions that you have. Awesome. I believe we have still 5 or 7 people left, in the call to submit the feedback. Just checking in the chat if we have missed any questions. Let me just scroll ahead and see. I don't see any questions missed. Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Aaron, for answering all those questions. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, people, for joining this session. We hope soon we'll come up with a new set of series, under SDK and also another topic under the community. And feel free to, as I said, forum is always there available for you. If you have any questions, feel free to post it into the forum, and definitely you will get a solution for sure. Right? That is what we can commit. Right. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care. Stay safe.